This midday, COVID cases climbing and schools setting up new guidelines for the fall semester. How Texas A&M students and staff are being impacted, and judges taking matters into their own hands when it comes to COVID precautions.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News Midday.
The Democratic budget will bring a generational transformation to how our economy works for average Americans.
New this morning, the Senate approves the framework for a budget resolution to support what President Biden calls human infrastructure. The $3.5 trillion plan passing a party line vote of 50 to 49. The package would create tuition-free kindergarten and community college, along with paid family leave, and it will also extend child tax credits. The House will return from August recess in 2 weeks to vote on it. Good morning to you. I'm Joey Horta. New COVID-19 guidelines are in place now to set the tone for Texas A&M's upcoming school year. A new vaccine incentive on campus is intended to encourage students to get their shots. Vaccinated students will be entered into a drawing to receive funding for educational expenses. The school is getting rid of remote learning options. If students are sick, they'll need to follow protocols established before the pandemic. 2 state district judges are giving authorities in Dallas and Bexar counties temporary power to issue mask mandates. The Texas Tribune is saying that following the ruling, San Antonio's health district and the city manager announced a temporary mask order inside schools and city facilities. The Dallas County judge says he anticipates issuing an emergency order today. Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo announcing that the county will file a lawsuit to challenge the governor's mask mandate ban. She says protecting the community during an emergency is a duty, not an option for government leaders. St. Luke's Health says it'll temporarily close the doors to its emergency room in Conroe due to staff shortages and capacity levels being too high. For more information on that, head over to stlukeshealth.org. If you'd like to connect with KRHD online, just pull out your smartphone now, open the camera app, scan the QR code on your screen. A notification banner will pop up at the top, and you click that to get to our website or social media accounts. All right, let's get a check on the weather now from Josh Johns.
Yeah, and we're starting off by tracking the tropics here on this Wednesday. A new tropical storm that formed overnight. This is Tropical Storm Fred, as it's now nearing the island of Hispaniola. That's the Dominican Republic in Haiti. 25 miles south-southeast of Santo Domingo right now. Winds at 45 miles per hour. It is moving west-northwest at about 16 miles per hour. Now, that is expected to move across just south of the Bahamas, cutting the gap between there and Cuba, and then eventually towards the Florida Keys by the time we head towards the end of the week. Notice that cone of uncertainty does go in the Gulf of Mexico. Don't think it's going to cause any issues for Texas, but it will be something we monitor for our neighbors to the east as it moves on in through this week, and maybe making landfall as a strong tropical storm in Florida coming up as we start off next week. Bryan College Station Extraco Eagle Eye showing you we have a beautiful conditions outside, partly cloudy skies, but it is downright hot. 87 degrees, but it already feels like it's 97 thanks to that humidity that is in place. In some cases already feeling like the triple digits. 87 in Summerville and feeling like 102 at this time. No showers to speak of, but you do notice the pink shaded counties. That's a heat advisory that is in effect for most of the Brazos Valley because our feel-like temperature is going to be climbing up towards that 105 to 110 mark. So you'll need the wind or the AC kicking on for your evening commute. Future Track shows you a small chance of rain as we continue through the day, just a little 20% chance. That's it. We'll do it again tomorrow. Not much to write home to mom about at all. Upper 90s on the way for today. 10-day forecast showing you that we're going to keep those upper 90s around as we round out the week. Maybe a cool down for the weekend with better rain chances. Then we're back into the upper 90s next week.
Early this morning, the Senate passed a $3.5 trillion budget resolution. The money would go toward things like affordable housing, universal pre-K, free community college, and fighting climate change. Most of the cash comes from raising taxes on big corporations and the wealthy. The House plans to take up the resolution later this month. 3 major U.S. airlines say they will not require their employees to get vaccinated for COVID-19. Delta, American, and Southwest all have their reasons for choosing not to mandate. Delta says 3/4 of its employees are already vaccinated. American and Southwest say they are just strongly encouraging employees to get vaccinated. United does have a vaccine mandate in place. The Taliban's control in Afghanistan is growing. Afghan officials say the Taliban took over a major army base overnight. Several provincial capitals fell in recent days, and Afghan officials estimate the Taliban now controls about 2/3 of the country. American and NATO forces have spent the last few months withdrawing from Afghanistan, a decision President Joe Biden says he does not regret.
I'll insist we continue to keep the commitments we made of providing close air support, making sure that their Air Force functions and is operable, resupplying their forces with food and equipment, and paying all their salaries. But they've got to want to fight.
U.S. forces spent 20 years in Afghanistan, making it our longest war. Check your freezers for these frozen stuffed chicken breasts. The company is recalling them because the USDA says they could be contaminated with salmonella. They were sold at Aldi back in February, but since they're frozen, you might still have some hanging around. The USDA says you should throw them away or return them to the store.
Tomato sauce, spicy lemon, cucumber, and tamarind.
Mexican traditional mug.
Just some of the possible ingredients for the spicy beer cocktail known as michelada.
As the years have progressed, a lot more people, a lot more brands have made their own spin or version of it.
At the return of this summer festival, traditional dancing, merchandise, and drinks are on the menu. But the global pandemic is still top of mind.
This is a big gathering place, and I know a lot of people are nervous about coming out.
Healthcare workers here are educating festival goers on home testing options.
Are you guys vaccinated?
They're also patrolling the grounds, promoting the importance of getting the shot.
We are here offering the COVID vaccine.
But Alma Blancarte Mora, a community health nurse, says they don't anticipate being flooded by people clamoring to get vaccinated.
We're at a festival and we're not expecting to vaccinate hundreds of people, but what we are doing is connecting with people, letting them know that we're here.
A recent analysis by the Kaiser Family Foundation found that of the total number of adults in the U.S. who have received at least one dose, 61% are white and 29% are Hispanic or black.
And this is your first dose.
24-year-old Daytan Del Valle, a Michelada Festival attendee, had been thinking about getting the vaccine, but finally rolled up his sleeve at the beer fest.
Friendly staff came to me and was like, "You want to have it?" I figured it was convenient today for me to get it, and I got it.
In some states, the shares of vaccinations going to Hispanic people are increasing. Florida, Nevada, California, New Jersey, Texas, and New York, for example, all saw increases by at least 10 percentage points. Organizers here say that this is the new front line in the global fight against the pandemic.
The majority of the people that are visit us is going to be because they've heard it through the word of mouth at the festival.
Grassroots events like this that honor culture and tradition, they say, will help build trust where it may be in short supply. Reporting from Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi.
As more states legalize pot, kids are winding up in the hospital after accidentally overdosing on marijuana edibles, and parents are being pressed to watch how they store their supply. Calls to poison centers for kids under age 12 who had eaten cannabis edibles jumped 1,600% between 2016 and 2020 to 2,681. So far this year, there have already been over 2,000 calls. The edibles, which look like candy, cookies, or brownies, typically contain about 10 milligrams of THC per serving. That's the chemical component of cannabis that causes a high, and are meant to be taken in single doses by adults. Julie Weber of the American Association of Poison Control Centers says they're seeing more incidents of kids getting into their parents' stash.
The child ate a bag and a half, with each bag containing 12 of the gummy bears. And the amount that was ingested was so significant that we did have to refer them into the emergency department because of the risk for seizures.
Weber says most calls to poison control centers can usually be handled at home, but when it comes to pot edibles, 88% require treatment at a healthcare facility. 39 states plus D.C. have legalized or decriminalized cannabis, and many of them are doing their part to keep edibles out of kids' hands by requiring edibles to be sold in childproof packaging that clearly shows the amount of THC. Some states ban packaging that imitates other popular snacks, as well as the use of cartoons, animal shapes, or anything that might be attractive to children. But because marijuana is still illegal at the federal level, the FDA can't regulate the packaging or potency of edibles. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is working on a new bill to legalize cannabis, but it's still unclear how the FDA would choose to regulate edibles. For now, public health experts and cannabis industry insiders agree the best prevention for child overdosing is responsibly storing cannabis edibles. Callan Howell, Washington.
From lettuce to basil, where some of your food comes from could be changing. Indoor vertical farming is gaining traction in the food industry. These are the farms of the future, if you ask Bowery Farming.
Today we're in our R&D facility.
From seed,
We're constantly experimenting with different types of seeds.
to germination flats put in a chamber for a few days, to their final home.
And what we look for are the leaves starting to be more fully developed.
The process takes about a month.
It's a 25-30-day growth cycle from seed to shelf.
It's an efficient process, and this facility only shows a small portion of what they are growing.
We are building local indoor smart farms close to the cities that we operate.
Chief Commercial Officer Katie Sewell says they are reimagining agriculture and controlling every aspect of the growing process.
We are not susceptible to some of the external variables or factors that can disrupt the supply chain or the growing process for crops. The ability for the current food system to pivot with agility to meet market demand based on market disruption is very, very limited.
It's a problem we saw during the pandemic, disruptions in the food supply chain and transportation, leading to rotting piles of unsold produce in some states and food shortages in others.
What kind of opportunities does the pandemic present? I think one of those is really food security.
However, horticulturist Joshua Craver says this isn't an ideal solution for every crop.
So there are some crops that just don't make a lot of sense in a controlled environment setting. Those range from crops such as grain crops or orchard crops.
Another downfall is lighting.
We typically use a lot more energy to grow our crops in vertical farms than we do compared to field or even greenhouse production.
Professor A.J. Bolth does research in plant lighting.
And I think that's an area where we still need to do a lot of work to try to help the vertical farming industry become even more efficient.
But it's not all bad. Vertical farms take up less space.
The benefits of that, of course, are that you can grow a lot more plants on the same footprint.
We are taking non-arable land and transforming it into highly productive farms.
While it may not be the ideal solution for everything, Joshua says it's a valuable addition to the food industry.
A lot of the ways that I like to describe controlled environments and vertical farming as being just another tool in our toolbox.
Back at Bowery, they're continuing to experiment with new crops and provide fresh foods for those at a cost comparable to organic foods.
As we scale, and that scale drives efficiency in the business, we will want to compete not only at a premium price point, but against traditional agriculture prices as well. It's an incredibly exciting time to be in this space, and I think there's real recognition that we have to think differently about how we build resiliency and strengthen our local and regional food supply systems.
I'm Chloe Nordquist reporting. As temperatures continue to climb this summer, doctors say it's important to drink plenty of water. Otherwise, you could risk dehydration. Common symptoms of dehydration include feeling thirsty, tired, lightheaded, and not being able to urinate. Your urine may also look dark yellow in color. In more extreme cases, a person might notice a rapid heartbeat or breathing, low blood pressure, and eyes appearing sunken in. If that happens, they should go to the hospital right away. Health experts say babies and young children are often the most susceptible to dehydration since they're unable to ask for fluids. Heat exhaustion and heat stroke are also concerns this summer. Doctors say your body can only withstand certain temperatures. Experts suggest go inside a cool room if you start to feel overheated and drink plenty of water.
Going to be a hot one out there today. Upper 90s for all of the Brazos Valley. Normally should be at 97 this time of year, so this is typical for August. But remember, it's going to be humid, so it'll be feeling like 105 to 110 this afternoon. Need to be taking your heat precautions. That means drinking plenty of water. Try to limit your time outside, and if you do have to be out during the heat, you need to be taking frequent breaks in the shade so you don't overheat. 96 for your Wednesday, 95 Thursday, 97 on Friday. We'll take you through the rest of that 10-day forecast. We'll cool off a bit this weekend with better rain chances. Next week, though, back to the upper 90s.
A potential breakthrough in treating metastatic breast cancer. Early findings just released show a new treatment can kill 95 to 100% of cancer cells. The data is early and comes from animal tests, but researchers say it looks promising.
All the tumors have been eradicated, they've been destroyed, and they're no longer detectable.
When biochemistry professor David Shapiro first saw these images, he couldn't believe his eyes.
It was hard to imagine that we had a drug that would take cancers and cause them to just disappear in a matter of days.
But that's just what they found. The compound, known as URSO, selectively exploits the pathway that shields cancer cells from being killed off by anti-cancer drugs.
We hijack this pathway with the drug, and instead of just tweaking it a little bit to help the cell grow, we turn it on so high that the cell just shuts everything down.
The imaging is startling.
This is breast cancer that has metastasized to the upper spine, to the lung, to the liver, and also the lower spine. Untreated, this mouse would die within a week or two.
Just 7 days after treatment, the tumors have been destroyed, the cancer eradicated. 4 months later, without additional treatment, no detectable tumors.
We have been making these kinds of drugs for over a decade, and none of them ever did anything remotely like that.
Professor Shapiro and his team of scientists at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign published their findings in the journal Science Translational Medicine. Researchers say URSO can target the most common and deadly forms of breast cancer.
Metastatic cancer is very difficult. You can't really cure it currently. You could treat it, you can slow it down, but eventually pretty much all the patients with metastatic breast cancer die.
The findings were so impressive that a year before the study was even published, pharmaceutical company Bayer bought the exclusive licensing rights in a deal worth up to $370 million to develop URSO as a cancer therapy.
The hope is that this one could move quickly, that there'll be fairly dramatic results in people as well.
Researchers' next task is to test the drug against other kinds of cancer. URSO would still need to clear clinical trials over the next few years to test for safety and efficacy in humans before it could be marketed. But Shapiro says there is considerable optimism.
I think if you're a researcher, you hope that someday in your life you'll do something that might actually help people.
Reporting from Urbana, Illinois, I'm Usher Qureshi.
Kids need to be up and moving, and they need to have that, where the theme all makes the learning connect for it to stick. And so hopefully this is going to be here for many years to come.
There's a new meaning to creative learning. 2 artists in Texas are donating their time and graffiti talents to paint murals inside classrooms, turning them into experience rooms. There will also be things like miniature barns, towns, and other activities to go along with each theme and mural.
You can make something interesting from just about anything.
That's exactly what this Denver woman is doing. Heidi makes collages or mosaics out of literally anything, including trash.
Beads, buttons, necklaces, army men, little plastic toys.
She mainly does portraits, turning litter into someone's likeness.
It's kind of amazing to me that I was able to do this. I'm like, this is trash.